Hi there and welcome to this, the next of our vidcasts for new media journalism at AUT University. This week, the changing role of the reporter, citizen journalism and all that stuff. In the first of our two interviews, Jeremy Rees, the multimedia editor at nzherald.co.nz, tells us, perhaps surprisingly, that he thinks reporters can't be all things to all people.
If you're putting out foraging data type website, as well as a wonderful in-depth newspaper, they're very different skills, and to ask the same person to do both when within an 8-hour day, or laughingly an 8-hour day, is quite difficult, I think. And I can see, and I do think one of the strengths at times of some of the newspapers and newsrooms that have not integrated is that they have accepted that you are going to be a very good online journalist, and you're going to do it in this way, as opposed to you who need to go off and do an investigation or a review. I think it's very hard to keep switching between those two different needs for one reporter, to be honest.
That's often, in many places, that's where it's going, though, isn't it? A lot of journalists are being asked to be feature writers in the morning and headline writers in the afternoon.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think eventually, if that is taken to its logical conclusion, things suffer. Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. The Tony Veitch press conference that he gave, whenever it was, last Thursday. I mean, literally for online, you almost needed Twitter-like or text things. Tony Veitch has just said he's sorry. He's just said he lashed out. Bang, 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 bang. The people who were there, though, for the newspaper need to go beyond that, because tomorrow everybody's going to have read what he said. So they needed to sit down and try and get colour, reporters fidgeting, the atmosphere you could cut with a knife, the wife putting her hand on her shoulder. They needed to notice that detail. It's almost impossible to notice all that detail at exactly the same time as you're texting away whatever he's just said. And I think, therefore, that we had 2 or 3 people up there for that conference, and we needed it.
You've got Eddie Gay and a few other reporters that we know at AUT carrying cameras around the city now.
Yeah.
This is quite a big development for NZ Herald on .co.nz. Is that a big step you've taken recently?
Well, actually, I hired Edward when he told me, partly because he told me that how good he was on the photography, and I trusted him. Well, which was a good thing. And I think I do think, though, that it is a big step for a reporter now to be doing multimedia. And I did have some worries about it, not necessarily because of the impact on the reporters, but on that whole idea that you've got specialists in the media. You've got specialist photographers. So suddenly, me coming along with a camera, how am I going to cope with that? And so I think actually one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot actually over the last 18 months is, how do you differentiate? If you've got a specialist, a Qantas award-winning photographer posing a wonderful shot of the truck blockade, and then you've got me snapping off a couple of shots as I go down Queen Street to try and get it up, there's quite a significant difference in quality. And how do I display those next door to each other, or should they be displayed next door to each other? We're getting into sort of conundrums like that, I think.
Is one not the text of photography, if you like, and therefore there's room in tomorrow's print edition for the award-winning Qantas
which
photo,
you luxuriate and study.
And you give it half a page if it's good.
Yeah.
But online photos are not so much about...
it's speed, it's
I just saw raw data in
it
many
is.
ways.
It is. What we've done is to try and differentiate often. If you go back and look, you'll see photo galleries which will actually explicitly say sort of our Herald photographers' truck blockade moments versus sort of, almost, and the others, But where that leaves the reporter in the middle, who's quite good at photography, is quite an interesting conundrum, really.
Absolutely. They say that gatekeepers of the news are on the way out, but that's what you do, isn't it?
Yeah. I actually think quite the opposite, to be honest. We did a whole series of focus groups with people about why they read the Herald and what they were reading. 2 things came out. One is the early adopters who want personalisation quite strongly. They just wanted, give me the facts, I'll work it out, mash it up, I'll do whatever I want. But they amounted to about 20% of the people we were talking to. The others really seemed to value Someone who would spend their entire day going through all the stuff and saying, we found these 10 things that we thought were interesting that you should read. You know, overburdened with data, they've got very little time, time poor. They wanted someone who says, my job is to actually present this to you. And so I think actually the experiments where people are trying to give both on sites, to say you've personalised your heart's content, on the other hand, this is our take on it, is actually the way to go, to be honest.
So all this talk of one way or the other, in the end we're talking about a blended environment?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, for instance, the New York Times and the My Times versus the editorial controlled, and I think that's where the Herald will probably end up.
It won't end up at Oh My News.
What's that?
It won't end up like Oh My News.
I don't know. Graham Reed might might want us to. I thought it was a great interview, by the way, that he did. But I was very conscious with Graham and Oh My News when who visited Korea and South Korea and talked to those people at Oh My News. I was very conscious he talked about the cultural aspects of it and as to whether it was specific to certain cultures. I mean, I was very interested in the USA Today experiment where, you know, they are ranking and rating each story, or the readers are rating each story, and then the homepage reflects that, which is increasingly, as far as I can see, seeming to be talked about as a failure, you know, for them, as their traffic has gone down and their number of browsers has gone down. The movement of citizen journalism, I find fascinating, is that it was the buzzword so much of 3 years ago, yet apart from Oh My News and others, you're not really seeing the huge mainstream, you know, the mainstream actually being taken over by citizen journalism. Most people are using it, as a way to send us your photos of the hurricane.
And didn't we always do that, Jeremy? Didn't we always value reader contribution? For a start, we knew our newspaper was being read and valued. For somebody to pop even a photo into an old snail mail method of delivering it to you showed that they cared about you, your newspaper, and they wanted to be part of it.
Yep.
And that interaction has always been there.
Yep.
Obviously, technology now has allowed that to become fluent and seamless and just, you know, hit reply and tell Jeremy what I think online.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's another citizen journalism, isn't there, that's, if you like, anti-media, that says the Herald's owned by Tony O'Reilly. Tony O'Reilly really sells baked beans.
Yep.
I want news from the ground, and I'm going to deliver that to my fellow citizens without involving the, if you like, corporate-owned media.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your response to that?
Oh, I'm glad they're there.
Why?
Because there has to be. You can only have a mainstream by having fringes. Otherwise, the mainstream goes to the edges, and I think it's great that they're there. I think it's also great that those people are there because there's a second strand to it. It's not simply the corporate media, but there are places where the corporate media won't make enough profit to go, and therefore we need those people who are out there in the areas where there's only a small element of profit, and therefore, but they're doing great work.
So they'll turn up a story that you'll follow if you see it,
yeah.
And if it is not for you, for your paper or website,
yeah.
then it will languish a little bit at the edges, but some people will read it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you've been following this amazing case in Quebec where a little old lady began a website for her small hometown, and one of the posts that somebody put on there was saying that the mayor was corrupt. And the mayor has taken a huge court case against this little old lady who's got sort of, 150, unique browsers and 500 page impressions in it. It's gone right across Canada, or people sort of taking up the cudgels for this little old lady. But what struck me in listening to and reading about her was that nobody else would have covered that town apart from this little old lady and her website.